Summer 1940, France. After the swift collapse of the French army and the fall of Paris, German forces occupy the north, while the collaborationist Vichy regime governs the south of the country. France becomes not just a battlefield, but a marketplace for greed, betrayal, and survival. As Nazi looting intensifies, priceless art, gold, and jewels vanish from galleries, banks, and private homes. To fuel its war effort, the Nazi regime relies not only on soldiers, but also businessmen, opportunists, and black market operators. While some resist and others collaborate, a few turn the suffering of a nation into immense personal gain. Among them is a Jewish textile merchant who produces military uniforms for the German army and the SS, while secretly smuggling stolen art and treasure on behalf of the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police. Protected by German officials, he thrives under the occupation, acquiring luxury hotels, mansions, and properties across Paris and the French Riviera. While millions of Jews are murdered in concentration camps, he becomes the richest man in France. His name is Mandel Szkolnikoff. Mandel Szkolnikoff was born on the 28th of January, 1895 in the small town of Charkovщина, in today's Belarus, then part of the Russian Empire. The town had a predominantly Jewish population and lay about 100 kilometers from present-day Lithuania. It is believed that Skolnikov may have been Karaite, a sect with beliefs distinct from mainstream rabbinic Judaism, but his exact religious identity remains unclear. In Imperial Russia, Karaites were often classified separately and were typically exempt from the anti-Semitic laws that targeted other Jewish communities. Skolnikov likely came from a prosperous merchant family. His father, Ajik, worked in the textile trade, and while Mandel was still a child, the family moved to Lithuania and later Moscow, where they lived in a large bourgeois house. By 1916, Skolnikov was already active in business, serving as a fabric wholesaler for the Imperial Russian Army. After the Bolshevik Revolution in November 1917, he briefly continued supplying the newly formed Red Army. However, as the communist regime solidified its power, Skolnikov chose to flee the country with his family. In the 1920s, he resurfaced in Poland, living in both Warsaw and Danzig, where he worked as a banker and owned property. After going bankrupt and facing legal trouble, Skolnikov escaped to Belgium, where he was convicted of fraud. Throughout this period, close relatives accompanied him on his frequent moves across Europe. In the early 1930s, Mandel Szkolnikoff settled in France and changed his first name to Michel to disguise his Jewish background. In September 1934, he and his brother Giselle founded a company called Textiles, which traded in second-hand and surplus fabrics. By 1936, Skolnikov had established himself in Paris and was known locally as Monsieur Michel. Though his business appeared modest, he lived comfortably and drove a rare American luxury vehicle, a Accord automobile. Rumors circulated that Skolnikov also engaged in the trade of paintings and jewelry brought from Russia. Multiple convictions followed for fraud, illegal banking, and practicing medicine without a license. In 1937, a court ordered his expulsion from France, but as a stateless Jew, the sentence could not be enforced. Placed under police surveillance, Skolnikov continued his operations, and in the final years before the outbreak of World War II, his business flourished as he bought up stock from failing competitors and supplied goods to major Parisian department stores. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The German invasion of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands started on the 10th of May 1940. Belgium and the Netherlands surrendered later that month, and Paris fell to the Germans on the 14th of June 1940. As German occupation of France began, Mandel Szkolnikoff saw opportunity. While much of the population faced repression, hunger, and fear, He built a vast fortune by serving the Nazi war effort. Starting in November 1940, he began doing business with the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, which became his primary client. Under the terms of the armistice, France was forced to pay Germany a daily indemnity of 400 million francs, nearly half the national budget. This money helped finance German-run purchasing offices in occupied France, many of which operated in a legal grey zone. These offices bought everything from textiles and leather to perfumes and cheese, often at inflated prices. It was a system ripe for abuse, and perfect for men like Skolnikov, who profited enormously from the volume of trade and the high profit margins. Through the Kriegsmarine, Skolnikov met Hélène Sanson, a German woman working in naval procurement. Known as Hélène, she soon became both his business partner and mistress. With her help, Skolnikov expanded his operations, securing access to textile factories across France and Belgium. These included not only French producers of silk stockings, wool and cotton, but also tarpaulins from Belgium. He also supplied hard-to-find luxury goods, which kept him in favor with his Nazi clients. From 1942 onward, the SS began to surpass the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, as the dominant occupying force in France. Hélène introduced Skolnikov to Hauptsturmführer Fritz Engelke, who oversaw the SS Economic and Administrative Office in Paris, and had previously served as personal secretary to Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS. Engelke, fluent in French and known for his efficiency, became a powerful ally. Engelke and his wife became close with Skolnikov and Hélène, often spending weekends together at villas and country homes. With Engelke's protection, Skolnikov expanded his activities further. He purchased goods cheaply, sometimes knowing they were about to be confiscated, and resold them to the SS for enormous profit. At the height of his operations, he was reportedly earning 1 to 2 million francs per month. His fortune was estimated at 2 billion francs, an equivalent of nearly 590 million United States dollars today. In August 1943, however, while Engelke was in Germany, Skolnikov and Hélène were arrested by the Gestapo's anti-black market unit. Their properties were searched, and their activities were scrutinized. After Engelke's return, he secured Skolnikov's release, but from that point forward, Skolnikov worked exclusively under SS protection. Turning his focus to long-term investments, Skolnikov moved into real estate. Beginning in 1942, he created a network of companies based in Monaco, where he even obtained official residency. He purchased at least 7 luxury hotels, including the Louvre and Windsor in Monaco, the Plaza in Nice, the Grand Hotel in Aix-les-Bains, and the Grand Hotel de Paris in Paris. Many of these establishments had become financially vulnerable after the global financial crash of 1929, making them easy to acquire. Skolnikov also took control of Foncière du Nord, a struggling real estate firm, which gave him access to even more properties. His holdings soon extended into Paris, where he owned around 50 buildings, especially around the Champs-Élysées. By acquiring Société Générale Immobilière for 139 million francs, he gained control of around 50 buildings, including 16 on Rue Marbeuf in Paris alone. In Monaco, he bought at least 6 buildings and 7 villas, eventually becoming the principality's largest property owner. His acquisitions drove up real estate prices so dramatically that Monaco's government changed the law to require official approval for future transactions. As his wealth grew, Skolnikov and Hélène adopted an extravagant lifestyle. In Paris, they lived at 19 Rue de Presbourg, near the Arc de Triomphe, with a household staff of 10. They also frequently stayed in Monaco, where Hélène's jewelry collection and shopping habits became legendary. Their weekends were spent at a villa in Château or at the Château d'Aine near Mâcon. Their dining table, known as one of the finest in Paris, hosted business contacts, German offices, and Belgian suppliers. Some even claim that Himmler himself once visited, escorted by Engelke. In early 1944, as the war turned against Germany, Skolnikov began quietly transferring parts of his fortune to Spain. In January, he started frequently traveling to Francoist Spain, carrying gold and jewelry. Spanish intelligence grew suspicious. In May 1944, he was arrested in possession of a large quantity of jewelry worth 800 million francs. Engelke intervened once more, and Skolnikov was released on the 26th of June. However, he was barred from leaving Spain. With the Normandy landings underway and the liberation of France in progress, he chose to remain in Spain while attempting to protect his vast real estate empire from collapse. The Second World War in Europe ended on the 8th of May, 1945. Skolnikov, still stranded in Francoist Spain and unable to return to France, remained a wanted man. In response, the intelligence service of the French Provisional Government reportedly formed a covert group to track down collaborators who had fled abroad. Members of this group devised a plan to capture Skolnikov and smuggle him back to France. On the 10th of June 1945, agents lured Skolnikov into a trap in Madrid under the pretext of a jewelry transaction. Once there, he resisted capture and had to be sedated and stuffed into the trunk of a car bound for the French border. But during the journey, the 50-year-old Skolnikov died, likely due to sedative overdose. Fearing exposure, the agents dumped his body under a bridge near the village of El Molar, about 30 kilometers north of Madrid, doused it with petrol, and set it alight. However, there is a contradictory account of the circumstances of his death, according to which, when Skolnikov defended himself, he was beaten so heavily that he suffered a fractured skull and died of a heart attack. Even the motives of the commandos sent to repatriate Skolnikov are questioned. Some claim that they tried to bring him back to France to recover his immense fortune for the state. Others claim that it was for their own enrichment. All of Skolnikov's assets, as well as those of persons recognized as being jointly liable, were placed under sequestration. The Skolnikov seizure is to this day the largest in French history.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.